Hi, everyone. It's Kelly from the Hub here today with our friend Meg, who is our resident potter. How are you there, friend?
I'm doing good. How are you, Kelly?
I'm doing very well. Um, Meg was doing stuff last week. She was very busy, and so she could not meet with us. So, or was it 2 weeks ago? It doesn't matter. It's time. It's COVID, man. Time
Yeah, what day is it?
not important. Well, right? Is it even right? I mean, I have no idea. So we've been through Meg's pottery journey, um, and had fun and learned a ton of stuff. And today we're going to talk about selling and how you can turn. I mean, if you just made through pots all day long, it would be lovely. Your house would
Yeah,
be full,
yeah.
and that's it. And that would be it. But you decided to take it to the next step. So let's talk about like why, and I guess I should ask this question to start. Why did you choose to have your store on Etsy?
Ooh, that's a good one. So Etsy's probably the most popular platform to sell handmade stuff like that. So I really felt like my only options were between setting up an Etsy shop or making my own website. I wasn't quite ready to dive into that. I know that I could probably make a website that looks okay. There's some pretty good websites that kind of guide you through the design process, but it was more the payment portion that worried me. I wasn't quite sure how to set that up. I'm still not. I think there's something called Square that people use a lot, and it's not
Love Square.
too hard. Yeah, I think it's pretty popular. I don't think it's too hard to add webs. But I also like the fact that Etsy would bring traffic to your page through searching. Someone could just search handmade mug and my store would pop up versus they would never ever find my website unless they clicked through it through like my Facebook or my Instagram. So I wanted to start on Etsy just so I could gather a little bit more traffic towards my stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Etsy is like the standard. It is the place to go when you want something handmade. That's the place. There might be,
Yep.
and I don't even know if there are other things, other sites,
Yeah.
because that's where I go.
It's got pretty big over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think some people sell that stuff on eBay or Facebook, but I don't think you reach as large of an audience.
And I also think that audience is different. When
Yes.
someone goes on Etsy, they know, well, I guess I shouldn't be such a purist because I think we've all seen that Etsy over time some stuff is not so handmade.
Yeah.
Some stuff is, it's just not as pure, and it doesn't need to be, but it has changed a little over time. That's okay. But I think eBay is known for resale and for that sort of auction model.
Yep.
And Facebook can be, I think selling on Facebook is sort of the thing you do in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and I know it's been really recently that they've added the shipping options for the marketplace.
Yes.
And I know some people who have great success selling stuff through there with the shipping options,
Yeah.
like clothes or ornaments, things like that.
Yeah.
I just personally haven't tried it. And yeah, to me, it seems like another sort of resale type avenue where people are
Yes.
looking more for bargains rather than to
Yes.
spend, $20, $30, $40 on a handmade mug, which
Right.
to some people that seems ridiculous, but other people are very happy to pay that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said it that way because Facebook Marketplace, you're right, is much more of a right. Hey, I got this dresser. It's Facebook Marketplace is more like Craigslist. It's got,
Yep.
Hey, I've got this dresser. It's sitting on my front porch. Venmo me $30 and you can have it. This is different. You're right. And absolutely, Etsy absolutely runs from stuff that, I don't want to say the wrong words. Okay, I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Stuff that like a granny might make that would be like kitschy and not super arty, but it's perfect for her niche, for her little niche market.
Yeah.
Whether
Yep.
it's like toilet paper covers, which is fine. There are a lot of people who want those kinds of things, but Etsy has 10,000 of those like niche markets.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I love to search on like homemade soaps and scrubs and body lotion and stuff. And my goodness, you could pay anything from $2 for a homemade bar of soap to $25 for a homemade bar of soap, depending on all that stuff. So you're right. I like Etsy too. So
Yeah.
you did it. How does it work? Like, how do you sell on there?
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. You create your account, your profile in just a couple minutes. You basically put a picture in, you give a little description about me, and then you add listings. And you basically just click sell, create my listing, you upload your pictures, give it a title. There's a bunch of subcategories you can fill into. Like I can put in the materials of my mug, whether it's stoneware or porcelain, or like I think I can choose plastic or wood or other materials like that. Can mark how many ounces it holds, the dimensions. There's a lot of things you can fill in under there. And that's mostly for if people are searching for, like if they just search for mug and they want to filter by ounces, I think they could do that. I tend to not, yep. I tend to not put too much effort into filling out all those little subcategories. I get the major ones like the ounces and the color and things like that, but you can really spend forever on each listing if you want to go through everything with a fine tooth comb.
Yeah, because it could be blue. I mean, you can search. I mean, all of those kinds of things are designed for loose or complicated searches. You could do mug, and then you'll get gajillions of listings.
Yeah.
Or you could do handmade 20-ounce blue mug, and then then you just get 500 choices that you can get.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the photography part, because in order to have truly a virtual storefront that looks professional, how do you take the pics? Do you feel comfortable with your talent to do that? Do you have a pal who you give them a piece of pottery every now and then and they take pics for you? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, so I take them myself. I have a DSLR camera, which I just use for like travel photography, family pictures, things like that. So I felt pretty comfortable taking pictures. I knew that I could make something that would look pretty good. And I played around with different lighting. It can be really tricky because the mugs are really shiny, so they catch glare. So you have to have even light sources coming from all around it, making sure the background looks nice, it's not too washed out. You also want to take them in a way that you don't have to edit them very much, because that adds a lot of time. If you're listing 30 mugs and each of them has 8 pictures, suddenly you have 240 pictures to edit. So yeah, and then there goes my whole Sunday.
Right. Or your whole week. I mean, depending on how that is. And you're right. It's not just like you're taking, well, I just have my travel cup here, but you're not just taking that shot.
Yep.
Right. You're taking,
you gotta get
you're
each
taking
side.
angly, you're taking the top, you're showing the handly side, you're doing so that people who know what they're getting into. You're getting close up to the detail, you're getting, far away so you're having a shot with something else next to it sometimes to get perspective, so it can understand that. So and if you're listing 30 things, which in an Etsy store.
Yeah, that's pretty typical. In each update, I usually have between 30 and 60. So the pictures can take a really long time. But if you get them good while you take them, it cuts out a lot of that time of editing. Then maybe you just have to go through and crop a little bit or straighten, and you don't actually have to adjust like the brightness or the contrast. I try not to touch those too much anyways, because I don't want to make the glaze look different than it actually looks. I would hate for someone to get a mug and be like, this looks totally different than the picture. So, yep. So I try to keep them looking, natural, but well lit. Yeah, so it definitely does take time. And then I have to make sure I have, several hours during daytime so I can get some good lighting to take pictures, which can be pretty tricky with my work schedule, which means I usually have to save my picture days for Saturday and Sunday.
Right. So this isn't something that that there's no work involved. Every time you have a new batch, you have to plan to front load a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that's interesting because we've all seen things online that are photographed well. Those are the things you want to buy. When things
Yeah.
are photographed poorly, you make a judgment in your head that that's a hack job.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
And you
Pictures
don't
are
want
really important for sure.
Yeah. So that's a huge deal is, taking that time. And spelling everything correctly, giving an
Yeah.
accurate description, saying the right amount. We've all shopped at stores where, my God, I don't care that you can say too much. The glaze was ground by small children. And then there's also ones that you say that you don't say enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to be pretty concise with my description and throw in keywords that they'll pop up more in the searches. So, like handmade blue pottery mug, it holds 16 ounces. Has a nice big handle, exposed clay, things like that. I don't go too in depth with it, but I do have like a standard template. I add in some bullets at the bottom of every listing, or I just say that, shipping takes this many days. This piece is microwave dishwasher safe. Those are just like generic things. Although I don't know if people actually read those too much because I get a lot of questions that they can dishwash their mug that they bought. So,
right. And there's also practical things that people are looking for yours, right? Dishwasher safe, microwave safe, those kinds of things. And
yep.
I would assume that if it has exposed clay, it wouldn't be dishwasher safe. But if you do glaze it, lick it, I don't know, whatever that another glaze thing, then you can do it so it's not porous in that spot. So how does like the paying stuff work? How do the finances work? Is it expensive? How does that work?
Sure. So if I remember right, I just linked a bank account. You don't need to have any other third-party payment software like PayPal or Venmo or anything like that. And as you get sales, the money goes into like your wallet, so to speak, and then it is automatically deposited to your bank account every so often. I don't actually know how often it does it. Every few days, I just notice, some more money came from my Etsy into my bank account. I think it just takes a couple days for the payments to clear and go through. And the fees when you sell come out of the earnings. So if I sold a mug for $20 and the fees were $2, I would get $18 for the mug. But there are some fees when you list an item. So each listing costs 20 cents, I believe, and I think it lasts for 3 months. Maybe it's only 2 months. So when you first list an item and you make it active, they charge you 20 cents, and that usually goes to a credit card.
Okay.
And if the item doesn't sell before the time period runs out for the 90 days or whatever it is, then you'll be charged 20 cents again, or you'll have to go and deactivate your listing.
Okay. So there's a charge to list it. And then is the fee when you sell like a percentage or is it flat?
It is kind of confusing. So it is Etsy charges a percent, and then there's a payment processing percentage.
Yeah.
That's something like 2.5%, somewhere in that ballpark. And then there's also a flat payment processing fee. And then there's also a shipping fee that Etsy charges. So there's a lot of little fees that go into it. I always estimate around 10% in my spreadsheets because it usually adds up to be between 9 and 11% roughly in there. And that works for me. I don't itemize the fees too much just because that would be a whole lot of work. I just plan on around 10%.
So you pre-build that into your pricing?
Yes. Yep.
And So when you, okay, do you, and this is, we are not getting paid, nor are we getting a sponsorship, nor are we trying to support or not support any platform. We're just talking about what you do. Do you,
Yep.
do you like, do you like that fees, like, or do you think that those are like appropriate for what, I mean, because like, you know, sometimes people are like, oh, they'll get you in the fees. And so some people don't find it worth it because they feel like they're getting nickeled and dimed on the fee end. Do you, I mean, you're a small seller. Do you think that it's still worth it to have your Etsy store?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And I've sold clothing and other random things that I don't want around the house on platforms for years, like
Yep.
eBay and Poshmark and websites like that.
Gosh,
And yep.
you should check
And
each other's
10%.
closets. I know.
Yeah.
If you don't know
Yeah. And so
Poshmark, we can
10%
talk
actually,
about, yeah, forever on Poshmark.
I think Poshmark actually charges 20% too.
Yeah, it's a
And
lot. Yeah, they charge a lot.
yeah, so I feel like 10% is pretty fair. And especially considering if I were to set up the whole Square thing and have my own website, I know I'd still have to pay Square a percentage too. I think it's somewhere around 3.5%. So really, I think that I'm paying 5, 6, 7% extra to be on Etsy and to have access to that audience, which to me, so far, worth it.
Yeah. So do you, okay, people want to know this. Do you make up the free shipping rules, or do you take a hit for that? Like, how does that work? Because, you know, now that the world is run by Amazon, everybody thinks that you can get everything you need the next day for free shipping because of how Prime works. Like, how does that work for your site?
Yeah, so shipping is pretty tricky, and I know it turns a lot of potters off from selling because it can seem complicated and confusing and expensive. And it kind of is. Luckily, I have had some experience with shipping through my clothing selling that I used to do. So I had a pretty good idea of what it was going to cost and my options and where to go for supplies and things like that. But with Etsy, they give you two options. You can either ship with Etsy and they create a label for you, and they just email it to you, you print it out and send it on its way, or you can do custom shipping where you make the label yourself. And I've always gone the custom route because I found that they're cheaper than the ones that Etsy gives you. So with that, you build a little shipping profile. So I have one called mugs. I know it's $8 to ship a mug. So for every mug I list, I apply that shipping template to it. But for plates and bigger bowls, I'm going to have to up it to maybe 10 or 12 just because I know that they're a little bit bigger. And that's not exact. Shipping definitely varies. I find that if I ship to someone in California, I lose a couple bucks in shipping because it's always more to ship over there. But when I ship to my friends in the Midwest, it's usually right at about $8. And oh, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna. I use USPS. I find that they have the best rates, and I always go priority unless it's a spoon rest. So you can ship first class anything under a pound, and that's usually about $5 to ship. But once you get over a pound, you have to ship with priority or express or flat rate or things like that. I usually go priority, and then you just input the dimensions of your box and the weight of it, put your address in, and then it spits you out your label for you.
As you were talking, I was thinking about this. A lot of creative people are creative. I mean, duh, right? But when it comes to several things that you've talked about, you've tracked stuff on your spreadsheet. I was going to talk about pricing, and we can talk about that more too. Determining the price, how to manage, you know, to do a custom shipping and you figured it out, rather than doing the way through the site.
Yeah.
You're doing That's not generally creative skills.
Yep.
Those
Yeah.
are
A
things
lot
that
of it is
were
not
creative,
doing
right?
pottery.
Right. I'm not saying that people who are creative can only be creative and they don't, that's not what I'm saying. But it can be more challenging because might not be as intuitive for you. You are good at doing both of those things.
Yeah, I love my spreadsheets. I use Excel in
Say that to
like
two
every
other
aspect of my
people.
life. Yep.
That's
And
fantastic.
yeah, I learned Excel in my first job in high school, and just ever since then, I love it. You can use it. I plan vacation itineraries in there, my personal budgets. I track my clothing sales in there, my pottery sales. I do everything in Excel. And it's really helpful. I don't know how I'd keep track of everything otherwise beyond just, the shipping and the sales portion, but keeping track of all the business expenses, how much I'm spending every month, how much I have in stock, how much is ready to be glazed and ready to be sold. And yeah, so there's a lot of tracking that goes on.
I mean, just listening to you talk about that, that's fascinating. That it's the part of this business that you have to treat as a business. This
Yep.
isn't just you having a half an hour a week with clay. This is really doing the numbers. And I think that takes, not everybody is like as good at that.
Yeah, for sure. I think I probably do have an advantage because I've been working with Excel so many years, and I've sold clothing for so many years too, that I'm more familiar with, the return on investment calculations and keeping track of expenses and just being really meticulous with everything. It comes in handy for sure. So
You
it's
just talked
actually
about
one of my
return
favorite
on
parts.
investment calculations. Oh, that's so fantastic. That's awesome. I'm not making fun, but I mean, I think there are a lot of people who do whatever, jewelry makers who are like, dude, what a return on investment calculation. So you might get some private messages after this interview who are like, oh, well, so you might be able to also be an Etsy consultant on how to get the most out of your store after this. So that could also be another gig that you do. So
Oh yeah, I could build Etsy Excel sheet templates for people. Oh, that'd be amazing.
oh, that's so cool. So when you do your pricing, is some of it okay? Because I've truly never done this before. If it was me, I would go out onto Etsy because that's my platform, and I would go, all right, mugs range from $10 to $45. $23, we're done. Like, how do you really calculate? Like, I use a third of a bottle of glaze, and that's $4. 6 ounces of clay, and that's $9. My time as a professional, that's this many dollars. Shipping, fees. I mean, do you go to that level, or do you just $23? or does your way and my way both equal $23? I mean, like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would say I do somewhere in between. I have
Okay.
a rough idea of how much a mug costs me in materials to make.
Okay.
It's not perfect, especially when you consider like, oh, I bought this really expensive wheel. How do I include that? And so it does get tricky because there's a lot of one-time expenses too. But for the clay and the glaze and the firing, those are basically the costs directly associated with each mug. So I do have a good idea of those in my head. And then to come up with the final price, I usually base it on ounces, just because the bigger a mug, the more clay, the more glaze. So it's also me being methodical. Again, I map out, if it's this many ounces, it's this many dollars. If it's 2 more ounces, it's $2 more.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep.
So
And
you do a combination of both of those things, not just your expenses, but also what the market will bear.
yep. Yeah, that too. It's tough. Pricing is a really hot topic among potters. People
Mm.
never know how to price their work. And yeah, I think we all struggle with it. I honestly just kind of picked a number. I saw some mugs on Etsy that I saw were in the $20 range. So I was like, okay, I'll do mine in the $20 range.
Yeah.
I see a lot of potters selling for 60, 80, $100 mugs, and that seems impossibly far away. So
Is some of that, and is some of that ego? Is some of that skill? I mean, I think the answer is probably yes. Like, and as a consumer, I'm not savvy enough to be able to distinguish based on skill between a $20 mug and maybe a $40 mug. But if I'm spending $100 on a mug, I also have to do laundry.
yep.
Like,
Yeah.
like that's or have like I need to really know that there is some exquisiteness about that mug.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I've heard a lot is that you're not just paying for the mug that you bought. You're
Right.
paying for the 20 years it took for the potter to perfect their skill to be able to make that mug for you.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so, and it also comes like maybe they spent 5 years perfecting a glaze recipe that they're using on this mug now. Or maybe this mug has some really cool designs on it. Like I've seen these Hobbit mugs that this one potter makes, and they have like the little circle door, and they're absolutely beautiful. And I think she sells them for $250 a piece, but it probably takes her 2 days to make these mugs. So, I mean, at that time commitment, you'd have to charge that much, especially when you consider all the additional expenses that full-time potters have, like health insurance, and
Right.
they have to save for their own. It does get tricky too when you try to choose between, oh, I'm just doing this for fun, it's a hobby, and then trying to price it as if it's your full-time job.
I'm really glad that you talked about that, because I think that also because of, dollar stores, we have forgotten as a nation that you pay for quality.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And
you
my
pay for
target
skill.
customers, yeah, they're not the people that want just a mug. I'm not trying to make the general population my customer. I'm really like, it's the people that want something handmade, that can appreciate the art in it and the time and effort that it took to make that. So it really is two demographics. I'll never be able to compete with Target selling beautiful $3 mugs.
Right. Or the dollar store selling $1. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that we have, in a lot of places, have forgotten about artisans.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I truly
absolutely.
think that was the impetus for how Etsy was created, because those founders said people have forgotten about artisans, and how regular people can, I mean, like, how does somebody who can live far away from an art scene get
Mm-hmm.
access to things that they would like, whether it's jewelry or
Yep.
clothes or pottery or glass or whatever the medium is that they like. You have to go to a show that happens once a year in a field that could be 5 states away.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So with online shipping and shopping and all of that, it does make it really easy to both buy and sell. There's not that many art shows around me too, so I know that I buy a lot more on Etsy than I would have if that was an option.
Yeah, and I mean, I've done the same thing, that I will spend more money because I know, I mean, because I know this person.
Yeah.
And it's not just, I know you because you're my cousin. I mean, like, this woman that I buy soap from who lives in upstate Pennsylvania in the middle of nowhere has this lovely goat farm that she encourages all of her customers to come and visit her. I haven't,
Oh,
a
wow.
friend of mine has. And you meet the goats, and she makes goat milk soap, and you meet the goats, and you can have tea with her, and then you can pick your own scent, and then she makes coming to her farm an experience. So
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm gonna give you what you asked for with body lotion because you have homemade goats. I mean, that's just cool. And I think that's also part of it too, is that
Yep.
I don't want to see those kinds of things go away. And what's fascinating, and I've talked about this with other artists as well, is that there is that interesting line between artisan and art. And I find that line to be sort of farther away. And I see that someone who does what you do is just as artistic as someone who uses watercolor
Mm-hmm.
or someone who dances for Alvin Ailey or someone who sings at the Metropolitan Opera. I find those things to be much more similar rather than farther apart.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some people who don't, who find that artisans are artisans, artists are artists.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess I have never really considered them separate.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess maybe people who create, like paintings or sculptures, I kind of always lumped all those together, whereas like in, theater, musician, that was always just like a different category of art in my mind, but all artists.
yeah, I mean, your brain isn't any less connected to beauty and design and form and skill than anybody else. I mean, you're newer at it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And I guess I my philosophy has always been that I think art should be for everybody, and I'm not super judgy about art. I think it's also because I find a lot of people who look at art to be super judgy, that
Yeah.
and that part. I've talked with several art teachers that I've worked with over the years, and I've always said, I need you to be with me when I'm viewing art, because I need you to show me why people have judgy faces and say judgy words about other people's art. And they're like, yeah, that's just them.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that in all forms of art. I actually don't find that there's that much in pottery. I'm in a ton of different groups about that, and everybody is just very kind to, the extreme beginners who are like, I saw a YouTube video and now I want to do it. They're just as nice to those people as the potters who've been doing it for 20 years and have a question. So from the people I've met, it's fantastic. It's a great community.
That's cool. That's very cool to know. So, advice for someone who is starting out and wants to sell. What's your, actually, you know what? Let's do this. If you could go back to yourself before you started, what would your advice be to yourself when you were in the early process?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm gonna say photography. When I first started, I couldn't get my pictures quite right, so I spent ages editing them, and I couldn't get a good way to get them onto my computer from my camera, so I was moving them from my camera to my phone to my computer, and then uploading them to the cloud, and then down. It was, yeah, I just did it in a terrible way. And the first time I did it, I was so frustrated. I think I spent like 10 hours just on the pictures for my first update. And I was like, I can't do this again. This is awful. I had to come up with a better system. And then the second one, I got better, faster. I figured out how to move the pictures from my camera directly to my computer. I work in IT. You'd think I would have known how to do that in the first place.
Well, I mean, lots of times do you have the right cord, or does that cord exist? I mean, sometimes that's really what the answer is. Yeah. Yeah.
I knew I had a little thingy that you just plug the card into, but I couldn't find it. And so I was like, oh, I'll just put them on my phone and then move them this way. And so I got better about that. I took my pictures better, so I don't have to edit them as much. I have my uploading and downloading pretty quickly. And the last one I did, it was way less time, just a few hours instead of all day. And another thing would be packaging. I really underestimated how much time it would take to pack mugs up and ship them out. But yeah, that is also a huge time commitment.
And I will say this, because when I received my package from Meg, she uses peanuts, those things that of those little things, because I can't say the word and I was like, I know Meg is a responsible environmental citizen. There is no way these are styrofoam. I don't know. Should I ask her? Should I not ask her? I want to. And we talked about it. And of course, they're compostable.
Yeah, they're edible. You can eat them.
Yeah, they're like made out of like corn funk or something, right?
Yeah, they just taste like Cheetos without any of the Cheeto dust. Like, they're not very good, but you can eat them if you want.
So, and that's very cool. She made that decision to do that and had to figure, do you use those air pocket bags? Do you use bubble wrap? Do you use compostable peanuts? Do you use styrofoam? I mean, there's a lot of conversation in just that alone. We didn't even talk about, which is different from the shipping label and the size of the box and that other stuff.
It's a rabbit hole. There are so many different materials you can ship with. And eventually I decided on the biodegradable packing peanuts because I can buy them by the bag. I don't have to get a truckload shipped to my house, which is a whole other ordeal. A lot of the shipping supplies come by the pallet. And so you can just go to U-Haul and pick up those corn peanuts, and they're pretty cheap. They work well. So I went with those. And then I recently bought a whole bunch of, it's like corrugated paper board. So if you think of what a cardboard box is made out of.
Yeah.
And you can buy it in big tubes. And basically you can wrap your pottery in there. And so if you have multiple in a box, they won't clink together and break, because I find that that's what causes the most breakage. Yeah, so I try not to use any plastic. Going well so far, but.
Awesome. I mean, and those are things you got in this to play with clay.
Yep.
And we've now talked for 10 minutes about biodegradable composting peanuts and complicated cords to use for photography. But those are the things you learn along the way. So you have to, and those are things you have to figure out. And maybe it is like I talked about before, that you make a friend who's a photographer and they do that work for you, and then you give them, pizza and beer or a couple of mugs on the side, or, whatever it is the deal is that you guys work out. I mean, I know in social services, we do the same thing. I'm like,
Yeah, I traded my logo for a couple mugs from a friend, and she made a logo for me and a bunch of thank you cards. And it was amazing because I don't have the skills to make a logo, and she did. So
you know what? We talk about that. Do you want to show us your logo?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So she made a few things for me. So So this is the first one. This is a sticker. So when I wrap that corrugated paper board around a mug, I can use the sticker to secure it so it looks nice. She made and printed these for me. She's got a really fancy printer.
So
and she
What's
Oh,
the
go ahead.
name of your store? Because it says MW, which are
Oh, yeah.
your initials.
Yep. Just Megan Warner Pottery. I thought about trying to do something cool and fancy, and maybe I'll rebrand someday, but for now it's just Megan Warner Pottery.
Perfect. Cute. And show us the thank you notes.
Yeah, so this is one of them. Oh, and I'm not sure if you can tell, but around the MW is a cat. I do have a black cat, so she incorporated that in there.
Oh, I didn't.
And it also,
Now
yeah,
I
it kind of looks like
see
a
it.
coffee stain too, so.
Very
Yep.
cool. I was thinking of it as a circle, but you're right. Having it as a cat, cute, and as a coffee
Yeah,
stain, more cute. Adorable.
I know, she did a great job. And then this last one I have here, so she printed this out. It says thank you, and then the cutest thing is a little cat when you open it up.
In a mug that sticks out.
I know, and her printer just does this, and it pops out like that. It's so cool. And then the back she included like a little blurb about, if you're happy, let me know. If you're not happy, definitely let me know. Here's my Facebook, my Instagram, some stuff like that. So yeah, very, very cool. And I actually got this logo printed onto a stamp, which I put onto the bottom of my pottery now. So your mug probably has a really terrible scratchy MW in it.
It does.
my maker's mark looks a little bit better these days.
See, I mean, even in this several months that since I've gotten mine, you've made other improvements in your business.
Oh yeah, it's constant. I have a running list of things I need to buy. Did I mention it was an expensive hobby? It's an expensive hobby. Yeah, it's constant.
But you don't have to have everything to start. You can start with some. We're going to be interviewing a woman who does glass, and she signs all of her pieces. She etches her name into her pieces. Well, one of the pieces that I have of hers wasn't etched, and she said, oh, I remember that was the year that we were, and she told, there was a story that was involved in that. And I said, oh, I remember that year. And she's like, that's why I didn't, she goes, I don't think I signed anything that year because we were so busy. And it was just this funny little thing, and you're right. And now she has these like fancy things and all this other stuff because she's evolved and she's made a little more money and things have changed, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So now when you look at the bottom of your mug and it looks terrible, you can remember that, oh, it was one of the first mugs that I made.
Old school. That's right. Old school. I have to say, this whole series has been really cool because you've been very open about your process, what you know and what you don't know, your art journey and your business journey. And I think that that's really cool. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to have everybody learn through you what they could do. And also to just go, huh, you can just do it.
Yeah.
You just do it. It's awesome.
Yep. With small initial investment, you can start making pots any day you want.
Yeah. Meg, this has been a thrill for me in lots of ways. So thank you times 1.5 million for doing this whole series with us. And I want everybody to go to Megan Warner Pottery on Etsy and buy all that she has. So she has to start looking for more stuff. I did see a bowl out there and I was like, ooh, it's like a soup bowl shape.
Yep. I'm going to have some more bowls here soon. I'm planning on an early April update. So stay tuned.
Those could be some of those could be coming to Pennsylvania. Just so you know. Thank you very much, Meg. It's been great.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly. Talk to you later.